So, can everyone hear me clearly? Right. Great. Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, today I would like to present on behalf of my colleagues about this study, which is still in its early stage. It's about the how the air traffic control would respond once they notice there are some anomalies on the screen. So these anomalies are referring to if there are successful attempts by perpetrators to inject fake messages to the ADSB surveillance. So basically, I'm a PhD student, but actually I'm also working with the Malaysian government, but not with the Aviation Authority in Malaysia. What triggers my interest in this subject is because I'm doing a lot of works on cybersecurity back in Malaysia. And I met with a counterpart in the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia, CAM, that also working on how to enhance the resilience of the operations. So one component of the resiliency for air traffic management is also we need to look after the cybersecurity aspect. So the outline of my presentation today would touch on the bit of introduction, some related works that we referred to in coming up with this concept, the methods that we use in coming out with the framework, the simulations, and also findings and the future directions. So let me begin with like a rough scenario on how ADSB attacks, in specific the ghost injections, will cause some disruptions to the air traffic management. So whenever there's someone injecting these fake messages and it managed to get into the ATC screen, so the ADC will perform specific actions. These actions will actually cause some addition of time to the arrivals, and also it's going to be cascading into some delays for departure as well. So we also conduct some studies that look into how the arrival and also the ground movement and departure operations at the airport are affected by this fake message attack. There's one study we just presented in the ICNS conference in Virginia this year. It's about the taxiing sequence that was disrupted by the ADSB attack. So whenever there are attacks, some standard departure approaches by the air traffic control cannot proceed. So they need to recalculate the taxiing sequence based on certain principles. So we managed to demonstrate to the audience how the disruptions to the taxiing sequence actually, they would cause some, losses in time and also some economic losses as well behind that. And of course, when we want to come up with like a contingency plan, we need to understand deeply what are the impacts whenever these attacks occur, so that we can, lay out a proper plan, the appropriate ones that can address this problem specifically. And also this impact analysis, it depends on a lot of information. So one part of it is by, deploying or exploring what are the possible attack scenarios that would be. So when we talk about how the air traffic control will respond, of course they have manuals and procedures that these guys are referring to. Of course, whenever they notice some unidentified aircraft coming in the screen, they would do some radio checks. That's basic. And for a period of time until they still cannot get the actual information, so they would try to deviate the real traffic from this, I would say, ghost aircraft. So we can see here in the diagram, like after they fail to collect credible information about this ghost aircraft, they will realign the queues for, in this case, for arrivals of aircraft to an airport airspace. So one of the related works that we referred to was collision risk modeling. It is actually a risk model that looks into how aircraft separation is very important, is very critical. The separation between two aircrafts and their trajectories, which should not be, like intervening between each other. One of the component of this risk model is to identify the CPA, or the closest point of approach, before there's nothing can be done. So it's basically, it's theoretical that ATC should take actions before CPA arrives. So otherwise it will be catastrophic. So this CRM, collision risk model, also defines in a time series manner. So for each specific period of time, what are these, the state of the situations at that time, and also what are the mitigations that should be taken at the specific period of time. And for our methodology, we didn't inject or whether wirelessly or using wire any real technical attacks, but we work on scenario-based analysis. We work with the air traffic controller. Whenever we put forward or we pitch an idea of this attack scenario and how would they respond. So it's like more to qualitative approach. So from the view of some air traffic controls at CAM, they say that the location plays an important role, because if we found something which is still en route, far from, like a very high density traffic airspace like the TMA, the terminal maneuvering area. So there are some, possible deviation which is not very tense at that time. So compared to the location of these ghost attacks or these spoofing attacks that occur right at the border of the terminal area. So whenever these attacks happen to be, appeared near to the border of the TMA, so they are really actually telling the ATC to take serious actions as fast as they can. And also these spoofing attacks or these ghost aircraft, they need to have certain types of characteristics or behaviors. It's not merely just flying in an unfashionable manner, I would say, just as crisscrossing or zigzags nearby the TMA border. What is more impactful is when this attacker plans an aircraft which looks like and copycat the real trajectory of like in an aircraft which has been seen by the ATC previously. So if the aircraft can mimic or somehow represent trajectories or speed profile or the the heading point towards the airport and entering the standard arrival approach tool, so actually it will make the ATC more confused, because at the very last minute before they reach the TMA and there's a ghost aircraft mimicking a real aircraft's trajectory and speed profile, and all these behaviors are resembling like a real aircraft. So it's gonna make the ATC more confused and what to do in a very short span of time. And of course, the density or magnitude of the attack, quantity of these attacks. Of course, if they are in a sudden, there are some aircrafts, unidentified aircrafts appear on the screen versus there's only one aircraft. So which one would be more credible in terms of, like, are these guys real or just some fake messages? So it really triggered the mind of ATC, how they react and they respond to such, like incident. So for this research, particularly we try to look at the point of time when this ghost aircraft was introduced into the system. We created a scenario where this aircraft is going to go past the separation minima. We didn't really define how the length of the distance between the real aircraft and the ghost aircraft, but we can see that if it's 5 nautical miles from the real aircraft, so whenever it goes below than that, so it starts when this ghost aircraft gets below than 5 nautical miles, and at that point of time, instantaneously the real aircraft should be deviated by the ATC to regain the separation minima. So between T1 and T2, there are some, it will take some time for these real aircrafts. Depends on the jets, how long they can, regain the minimum separation distance from the ghost aircraft. And this deviation is also following in parallel with the heading angle of this ghost aircraft. So this ghost aircraft actually is mimicking the speed profile, the altitude, the declining attitude of the real aircraft, and it also try to follow suit the trajectory of the real aircraft. But the ATC would then try to deviate it to make sure that the separation minima is adhered. So in our framework, we also define there's one, there's a buffer zone which actually plays a role for the changes of the maneuvering of the trajectory. So that every time this ghost aircraft gets into the system, so any, the threshold of this minimum separation can still be maintained, which is 5 nautical miles, and everything was being, done within that extra, distance within the buffer zone. Maybe we can say it's up to 1 nautical mile. So whenever the ghost aircraft trajectory is going to stray away to its own direction, so this real aircraft can get back to its original trajectory. Of course, it follows suit the angle of the trajectory of this ghost aircraft, and we can see that from T3 to T4, it is the period where this the real aircraft is trying to get back to its original route. So we work with a piece of a tiny data set from the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia. So the one on the right is the charts of the maneuvering area, the Lumpur maneuvering area. It's in Kuala Lumpur International Airport. It's I can say it's a mid-sized airport. It's not as big as the ones in Europe, where a lot of traffic going in Europe compared to in Malaysia, not as much as in Europe. This particular red one is was being in our scenario. It is being harassed by the black aircraft. So this is the trajectory of the ghost aircraft. So actually, the real aircraft is trying to land at the KLIA airport. Somehow there's ghost aircraft came in and, you know, like disrupt the original trajectory. So the simulation we plot on our software, and we define the ADSB latitude and longitude data. We convert into the X and Y position, and we just enter the altitude and the ground speed of the real aircraft. And for the ghost aircraft, we just copy everything. It's just that at the trajectory is different. Sorry. The trajectory of the ghost aircraft, which is the red ones. The real ones is the blue one, while the purple and this brown trajectory is purple is for the proposed tactical maneuvering, while the brown is simplistic deviation by the air traffic control, because they just want to make sure that the real aircraft to be as far as they can from this malicious aircraft. So this is the scenario view. So we can see here the red ones, when it gets to this point, so it triggers the deviation and also the simplistic deviation by ATC. So our model plots on the purple trajectory, and the blue ones are the real trajectory for the real aircraft, and the red is for the ghost aircraft. So at certain points, actually they are already separated. When we look at the separation minima, and when the red ghost aircraft just flies away from the terminal maneuvering area, so the purple and also the brown trajectory is trying to get back to its the original path. So we can see that it takes more time for the purple and the brown trajectory to return to the original path. So when we try to analyze each events that induce that kind of trajectory and also behavior, we can see that at normal or the actual time taken by the real aircraft, it's about for 5 minutes of flight. The proposed tactical maneuvering trajectory took about 352 seconds, while the simplistic version by ATC that tried to separate up to 6 nautical miles and more would take around 420 seconds. So some other findings that are related to the simulation: if we change the speed profile, we make it faster, the aircraft travels faster. So actually the tactical maneuvering and also the simplistic deviation can reach the original flight path quicker. However, because during emergency situations, I believe all air traffic controllers, they have the regulations for each aircraft to fly up to certain, knots, not more than that. It's rules by the Air Traffic Authority. So that's why we capped the maximum speed just now was to like 160 meter per second, if I'm not mistaken just now. And at any inferred time shows the current situation and whatever recommendations that the framework would propose, either to maintain speed or to lower its speed in order to follow the proposed trajectory. So actually the framework is displaying information and the proposed trajectories that the ATC should consider in order to guide the aircraft so that they would not make any deviations excessively. So for our for conclusion, of course, this open data, whether it's from OpenSky or other web-based sources, actually can be capitalized by perpetrators, because I found a study that looked into analyzing the most, for each particular aircraft, they can predict the actual trajectory of the aircraft. So based on open source data that was collected over a period of time. So when they regenerate the ADSB data, it shows some most possible trajectory that would be flown by this aircraft at particular time. So this would enable the attacker to learn to attack at which time and at which location, so that the air traffic controller would have more difficult time in addressing this type of attack. And for our future works, of course, in my paper, I discuss a bit on how to make it more informative from the economical aspect in terms of burn fuel if a longer trajectory was chosen instead of the proposed tactical maneuvering trajectory. So it's a full burn model that can be explored further. And what if we induce with more complex attacks, which has more density and magnitude in terms of the frequency of the appearance of these ghost aircraft. If it keeps on, appearing for a longer period, not just 5 minutes compared to in this simulation. And what if there are more variables? Of course, in real-time scenario, there are other factors such as weather and also the surrounding traffic. And we plan to, expand the scope, try to look into the existence of, the surrounding traffic for this particular data set, and also to identify, like what I said, what as being an attacker or a cyber attack, which aircraft or at what time, and which is the most vulnerable location that we can attack, this particular flight. So so that the impact would be more severe to the air traffic management. Of course, we know that delays would be longer, and cancellations of departures would be the result of this type of attack. So with that, I would like to wrap up my presentation. Thank you.